and she was born to a parent, to parents. I don't know, dude. I think I might have to start over. Hello, my beautiful rosebuds. Welcome to my channel. My name is Mila. If you're new here, today is Makers and Makeup Monday. And what we do on Makers and Makeup Monday is we look at this inspirational artist and we try to learn something from them, their life, their inspiration, and see if it is something that we can take and use in our own creative life. Today, I am looking forward to learning with you about Frida Kahlo. And, you know, I have to say that this was a really emotional learning experience for me. I mean, I was familiar with Frida's work and knew a little bit about her life, not terribly much. But when I was learning about her, I actually have a book that is right there that I read, and I've seen quite a few documentaries about her life. I was really emotional. I don't know, maybe it was, well, you judge for yourself. Her life was definitely not an easy one, but she had a very strong spirit. And something that I have also discovered by doing these Makers and Makeup Mondays is that a lot of the artists have undergone some kind of a challenge, difficulty, something they had to overcome. I don't want to say pain, but a lot of times it kind of involves pain, external and internal. And some of the commonalities that I have seen is that an artist as a child would get either ill or had to maybe take care of an ill parent, where they were pushed into being much more observant, and as a result they were able to kind of see things in a different way since they were very young. So overcoming difficult situations can certainly have a beautiful outcome. Without any further ado, let us begin speaking about a unique, beautiful artist by the name of Frida Kahlo. While we put makeup on. Frida was born on July 6 in 1907 in Mexico City, and her given name was Magdalena Carmen Frida Calderon. She was born to a father who was actually a German Jewish immigrant. He immigrated to Mexico and he was super young. And the reason I'm talking about her dad is mostly because he had a lot of influence on her art and her life in general. So his given name, his German given name was Wilhelm Karl. He changed his name from his German name to Guillermo Kahlo, which just sounded a little bit more Spanish. Frida's mother's name was Matilda Calderon y Gonzalez. She was a native-born Mexican and Spanish descent. Her father was actually a photographer, and he made his living that way. Way back then, he learned the business of photography from his wife's, Matilda's father. He really became very good and did quite a few really cool portraits. They mostly did portraits, but then it's not like they walked around with their little cameras and like, oh, that's pretty. Her dad was also somebody who encouraged Frida throughout her life to expand and grow and really explore her artistic abilities. And Frida was quite talented. I feel like a lot of times we just think of her as an artist that we know today, but in fact, she wrote poetry. She drew pretty well, not just painted. She did a lot of like extracurricular activities. She was very boy-like. Most of her friends, from what I have researched, have been boys and men, and she really fit in with them. She was unconventional. She didn't want to conform, and she was a really talented, fun, kind of a wild girl. So after Frida was born, her mother was super sick. She wasn't able to take care of her. So they had to hire a wet nurse. Later in life, when Frida was painting quite consistently, she painted a picture of her wet nurse that pretty much raised her, breastfed her because her mom couldn't do it. And it had an impact on Frida. She had some issues with her mom from everything I have read. I'm not going to get into that too much, but she definitely painted her feelings. She painted her pain. She painted her struggles. And it was so powerful, and it was so unique at the time for, first of all, a woman, second of all, to have such raw images. You know, it was definitely in the avant-garde scene. When she was little, she had polio, just like Maria Primachenko and just like many other artists. And this is why I was saying, like, it seems like these children have gotten ill when they were young and they had to overcome all of these painful experiences, and it kind of, I think, formed them in a certain way where they're more observant, more patient, more introspectful. I don't know. This is just my theory. Don't come for me. So she had polio on her right leg, and her right leg became much smaller than her other leg. She limped because of that. Her father helped her a lot with just working that leg out, but she was always self-conscious about it. She ended up wearing extra socks and always tried to wear long skirts or pants to cover that up. So her disabilities come in later in life as well as part of her struggle and expression. So anywho, oh my God, I can talk forever. Ugh. So in any case, in 1922, when she was around, I think she was 15 years old, she became one of the first female students in a really prestigious Mexican preparatory school. And she went there wanting to become a doctor. She never had ideas of being an artist when she was young, and that didn't really come until much later. She became a member when she was in the school of Los Cachucas. I suck in Spanish. I'm so sorry. And it was a political group that supported socialist, nationalistic ideas. There was a boy there, his name was Alejandro Gomez, and he was the leader of that group. And later on, he became Frida's boyfriend. They were very, very close. He was her first love, and he really had an effect on her heart. She was a part of that group for a while, so they didn't immediately met each other and were fell in love. No, that became later. They became involved. So because of the revolution, a lot of the artistic movement had very large murals that were being created by a whole bunch of painters. The artists were finding their Mexican voice, their roots, and seeing the young people finding their voice. Diego Rivera was one of those artists. He was an incredibly talented artist, muralist, and he actually created murals all over the world. So Frida met Diego, and she was right away very impressed with him, borderline obsessed with him, I believe. But at the time she was still with Alejandro, so I don't think there was anything really going on. And again, she wasn't into the whole art thing herself. It was more of a nationalistic movement. I have to put makeup on, duh! And in 1925, Frida was actually hired as a paid apprentice to a commercial printmaker, and that was actually a close friend of her father's. He asked her to draw pictures and copy prints of a lot of Swedish impressionist artists. She was talented. She enjoyed it. She enjoyed the joy of art, of creating. However, she and her love, Alejandro, got into a horrendous, horrific, awful accident. It was a bus accident. Her spine was injured, her leg, her arm, her rib cage, her collarbone. She was a mess. She was in the hospital for a very, very long time while she was healing. And she was healing in her home that her father built, and it was referred to as the Blue House, and she found a lot of peace in that place. Whenever she was in pain, it looks like that's where she went. It was her safe place. She was literally bedridden. She couldn't get up. And during that time, she actually started to paint just to keep herself busy and keep herself sane. She first experimented with watercolors, then she moved to oils. What she started painting is herself. Her father has created this contraption for her to be able to, it's like a table on an angle, and then he put a mirror on top of her so she could see herself. And that is what she started to pain. She painted the pain and the suffering that she felt. I feel like it was almost therapy, it was therapeutic for her. And she did say that later on, that having all of this expressed on canvas gave her some peace and release from the pain. Alejandro, her love interest, has distanced himself from her because he actually found out that she was unfaithful. He dumped her. And she had a lot of lovers, from what I have read, girl lovers, boy lovers. She liked to explore. She liked, the raw feeling of whatever she was experiencing. In 1925, Mexico was going through that artistic renaissance. And at this time she healed, and she was 25 years old, and she was mostly recovered from the accident. And she started hanging out with Rivera. And at that point, he was a very successful artist. And he was a Cubist painter, actually. He met a lot of famous artists like Picasso. She fell in love with him. And it was such a strange match. Diego was 6'3", 300 pounds. I think he was in his mid-40s, maybe 44. And Frida was in her early 20s, 22, I believe. And she was tiny. She was 5'3" and 90 pounds. They had a very challenging relationship, but they ended up being together, till the very end. Anyway, on August 21st, they were married in a civil ceremony. Frida became Kahlo's third wife, and Diego was a womanizer. He always cheated on his previous wives, and unfortunately Frida was not an exception. And Frida was bold. She was not afraid of anything, and she loved that man. That the pain that was caused to her from his infidelity and some of the other things that happened, it was just so devastating to her. And she did get pregnant from him in Mexico one time, but she had to have an abortion because I think the baby wasn't conceived properly, because her pelvic bone was broken. There was some issues, and they said that if you carry this baby to term, you're going to die, and the baby's going to die. You're not going to be able to have a healthy pregnancy. So that really affected her. She painted several pieces over the years where she expressed her pain and loneliness of not being able to conceive. It's heartbreaking, So in any case, after the unrest in Mexico, communists started becoming persecuted. And, they were definitely in that movement, in the communist movement. They believed in the cause, and it was something that, was happening all over the world, really. Diego and her ended up taking, it was Diego really. He took a job in the United States, in San Diego. He was invited by the American government to paint a mural, and that was pretty damn cool. In San Diego, Frida painted her first Frida painted a portrait called Frida and Diego Rivera, and it was a double portrait, and it was based on their wedding ceremony. And it was one of a beginning, the slow start of her taking her art seriously, and other people kind of noticing her as well and her style, because she really didn't want to be an artist. She didn't want to compete with Diego, or it just wasn't her thing to be a professional artist. She painted because she needed to paint. Before she painted this piece in San Diego, she actually painted her second self-portrait, which was called Time Flies. She kind of establishes her sort of folklore style of painting, and that became her signature trademark. I forgot to mention it earlier. So yeah, Time Flies. And then her second portrait was, the one that she did in San Diego. But she also painted a picture of her first love, Alejandro, and you'll see how different the styles are. So now they're in San Diego, and he's working on his mural. He's working all day long. She's kind of lonely. She really didn't like it there. And then they went to New York City and for another job for Diego, and she loved New York. New York was much more her scene. After that, they went to Detroit, where Diego got another commission of murals, and she got pregnant again. And at that time, she was hoping that she could carry the baby. She really didn't want to have another abortion. She didn't want to give up. The doctors were telling her it wasn't a good idea, but she kept the pregnancy for as long as she could. Unfortunately, she had a miscarriage. That miscarriage just destroyed her. She started painting her anguish. You can just see like her heart tore open, and she painted a painting. I'll link it up here. She just expressed how devastated she was. And it was revolutionary for so many people, because people didn't really do that, you know. And, they spent 4 years in US, and then they went home. So unfortunately, continued his affairs. He had an affair with her sister Christina, and this was another thing that just like took a knife and stabbed her heart. She basically just didn't know what the heck is going on. She didn't know what to do. So she moved out, and she moved out to a small apartment in Mexico City, and she got like a pet monkey, and she painted a painting with that. Her style definitely kind of switched over a little bit, and she cut her hair short. We'll get into that later. I think it's like a trend. She painted this painting of a murderer. That it was a murder that happened in Mexico City during that time, and it was just gruesome. Well, the murder was gruesome, but the way she portrayed it was so raw, you know. And over the years, she had many lovers and affairs with people, and one of them was a photographer, Nicholas Murray. No one ever took the place of Diego. They were both miserable, basically. She was miserable without him. He was miserable without her, and she forgave her sister, and she forgave him. They made up, and they moved in together again. And just checking to see if my camera shut off, because sometimes it does that. It'll be like, okay, see you later, you've talked enough. Communism came back into in vogue, as they say, and both of them were really big proponents of the ideas of communism. Diego requested the president of Mexico at the time to offer Trotsky asylum. Now, Trotsky was one of the people who started the Russian Revolution, and the guy said yes. They offered asylum to Trotsky, but it is said that Frida and Trotsky had an affair. There's no evidence, but that's the rumor. She made a self-portrait for him in like this beige cloak with a white curtain behind her. She painted around 12 paintings since she came back from the United States. She really started taking her art career seriously. She did start making money. One painting she sold was the one with a parrot on her shoulder, and then another one was with her feet in a bathtub. In 1938, he meaning Diego, encouraged her to submit like 4 paintings into a group art show in Mexico City. And for the first time, her work actually started getting traction. She was surprised. She was like, and the critics seemed to really appreciate how unique her style was. Like I said, they've never seen anything like it. It was surrealism and like avant-garde and all of that other cool stuff. I don't know. Let me know if you guys want to learn more about those two styles. But she became successful. She received a letter from an art dealer. His name was like Julian something or other in New York City. And he's like, I want to show your work and have a showing in my gallery in NYC. She went there by herself. She traveled all the way to New York City, and she had a show without Diego. And you got to understand what that means, like back then, for a woman to have her own career and to travel overseas by herself. And that show was a huge success. So in December of 1938, a couple of months later, she traveled to Paris. She was invited by Breton for another gallery show. Unfortunately, that did not work out so good because people just did not prepare for it properly. But another gallery owner moved her work into his gallery, and he did it correctly. It turned out to be a really, really huge success. And Vogue put a picture of her work on the cover of their magazine. And she returned to Mexico in 1939. She was avant-garde. She was like the toast of avant-garde. And she came back, she found out a little bit more about Diego having affairs, and she started divorce proceedings. She cut off her hair again and started wearing men's clothing, and she started painting herself in these giant man suits. She started drinking a lot. This is when she painted her super famous painting called Two Fridas. And it was basically one Diego loves and one that Diego doesn't love. They lived apart for a year like they did the first time. Diego actually went to the United States. He started dating like this other chick, and she saw either a photograph or like somebody said something to her, and she was devastated. Frida became really, really sick. I don't think it was like because of that, but I'm sure that didn't help. She was so sick. She ended up in the hospital, and she painted a painting of what that felt like. So Diego heard that she was sick. It broke his heart. He went back and he proposed to her again. I went back to San Diego for treatment, and she didn't necessarily accept his proposal. She was actually feeling a lot better when she went back to San Diego. And on Diego's 54th birthday, they actually got remarried in San Diego, and they went back to Mexico. So, and in 1944, her health started to decline again. She always had to wear that spine brace that was incredibly uncomfortable, and she was in a lot of pain. That picture with her metal spine that I'll put up, you'll see like just, oh my God. And she suffered terribly, and she became addicted to painkillers. In addition to that, her foot got infected, and she got gangrene in her foot. Her foot had to get amputated. She became a lot more outspoken as far as of her love of communism and of her love of beautiful things in her life, and she really expressed that. You really didn't see a lot of that earlier in her paintings, but later on, she definitely took a turn, I suppose is a word we can use. She had a friend who put up an art show for her. It was like in 1950s, and her friend was basically worried about her. You know, they kind of suspected that maybe Frida doesn't have a lot longer to live, so they had this art show. And it was a huge party. At this point, she was just bedridden. She stayed a lot in her wheelchair. You know, it was a ginormous party. She was surrounded by all the people who adored her and loved her. She was brought to the party on her bed. Her paintings and, you know, her autobiography were talked about. And 2 months later, she had to have that bottom of her leg removed. And she barely left her rooms after that. She kind of felt that she was not going to be around much longer. So she started painting things a little bit differently. She would paint a lot of still life. Her last painting was a still life of watermelons. And it was called Viva la Vida. And on July 13th, 1954, Frida Kahlo died. Anyway, so she passed away, and friends say like Diego became an old man overnight after she died. You hear that a lot with people who are like together forever. She was his love, you know, she was his everything. Even though they had such hard times, he needed her and she needed him. And now that she was gone, he didn't know what to do with himself. He only lived 3 years after her death, and people say that he just was never the same. His last painting was also a still life of a cut watermelon to honor the love of his life. Her work sells right now for millions of dollars. She never would have imagined that would have happened. You should watch the movie, man. You're gonna be bawling. What did I learn after all of this? Pain is a bitch. But like with anything else, I guess if you can channel it somehow to express yourself and to have some kind of a release, you know, it doesn't have to be painting, guys. It can be whatever sort of comes naturally to you. Look for whatever allows your soul to feel lighter. Just do it because it makes you feel good, or it helps you deal with things, and hopefully it will offer you peace and offer you some way to feel better, you know? So this is the look that we have come up today. Me, myself, and I, and Makeup Geek, while talking about the life of Frida Kahlo. And I hope you found inspiration from it like I did. I thought she was incredible, like I said. And something about that spoke to me, and I hope it reaches some of you and inspires you to like overcome whatever difficult times you may be going through. If you want to let me know, I would love to hear what you have gone through in your life, and if it has affected a way that you express yourself. We would, love to support each other here on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for being here with us for Makeup on Makers Monday. It's going to be twice a week now, not every week, because I want to create some more content during the week as well. So on Fridays we talk about makeup, and I do some, hauls, and then on Wednesday I was like, whatever Wednesday, I have so many things that I want to talk to you guys about, so I'm just gonna have a whatever Wednesday day where I can post and talk about things that I want, whatever it is that I want to talk about, and hopefully you will enjoy that, and you can give me ideas of what you want to hear, and it's gonna be great. And have a great day. Bye.